Today in this show, we're going to be talking about some of the Japanese mythology found in my current favourite series, Wayward. So Japan is a very strange country in general. Most people in Japan are very conservative in their day-to-day lives and day-to-day routines. But then when it comes to how the Japanese tell stories, they very much embrace the weird. The weirder, the better. I love very strange stories in general because they usually have so many esoteric meanings in them that you can read them 100 times and still not get everything from it. So Wayward already has its own mini pantheon of monsters and supernatural beings going on. We're only 6 issues in, which is very, very exciting. All the records of Japan's monsters are actually found in the 8th century Kojiki. But before we even get into that, you need a brief rundown on Japan's mythological history. So the god Izanagi returned from the land of the dead and took a bath in the Japanese islands. When he got out of this bath, the droplets of water fell from him and fell on the ground, and this gave birth to an energy. And when this energy was good, it was called kami, and when it was bad, it was called mononoke. It was only in the Heian period, when new religions started coming to Japan, that the idea of this energy actually manifesting itself as beings came into play. Those that still worshipped kami became known as Shintos. Also, the mononoke evolved around this time, an insane amount. It started manifesting as monsters. These monsters would actually be catalogued in a scroll called Yukata Yakko, or Night Parade of 100 Demons. Fun fact, this is one of the world's first ever recorded creations of sequential art, which would later on evolve into comics. The mononoke would actually take a back seat in Japan over the years until the Edo period. It was around this time that people started telling stories about these monsters once again, and it's around this time as well that the monsters finally got their own name, and they were called yokai. The yokai were very, very trendy for a long time. A couple of 100 years, people found it exciting to hear about them. But when war came to Japan once again, priorities had to shift, and Japan put all of its focus on the war effort, and the yokai just kind of faded out of existence once again. And it wouldn't be until television, film, radio, and the internet emerged that the yokai would once again gain an audience. And obviously with the internet, the yokai could spread their influence further than ever, right out to the west. And that's where Wayward comes into the mix. So towards the end of issue 1 in Wayward, we actually meet the Kappa, or River Child in English. The Kappa in folklore are actually very different to the Kappa that are found in Wayward. First off, Kappa are not found in creepy looking back alleys. They're actually found in rivers, ponds, and lakes. Also in Japanese folklore, they're more reptilian and less Ninja Turtle. What I mean by this is they're usually about the size of a small child. They're covered in scales that are usually green or yellow, and they have like a small dent in their head, and this dent is filled with water, and if this water ever spills out, the Kappa just stops moving. The Kappa can be malicious like we saw in Wayward, but for the most part there are easy ways to get around them. Like if you did a deep bow, the Kappa would bow back because they're obsessed with manners, and this would cause the water in their head to spill out and they would stop moving. Then if you refilled the water, the Kappa would actually be in servitude to you forever. Also, they have a very deep sense of decorum, which is something that's not common in yokai at all. So obviously, the Kappa that we saw in Wayward are not the Kappa of legend. As for Rory's powers, they're actually based off a Japanese and a Chinese folktale called the Red String of Fate. It's the idea that from birth, you are connected to another person at the end of a red string, and the person at the other end of this red string is your soulmate. Obviously that is a stretch from Rory's abilities, but it's the only thing that I could find in Japanese folklore or even Chinese folklore that remotely resembled all the red strings that Rory sees. So towards the end of issue 3, we saw the Kyokotsu, or the Crazy Bones. Now it's worth saying right from the off, the Kyokotsu isn't exactly from Japanese folklore. You see, a couple of 100 years ago, there was a book series that people were obsessed with, and it documented all of the yokai, and people absolutely loved it, so more and more books of it had to be made. Eventually, the guy writing the series ran out of yokai, so he had to start making his own yokai up, and that's where the Crazy Bones came into play. He has said that you would find it in the bottom of a well or in the bottom of a bucket, and it was completely malicious because it died by accident. It was a lost spirit that had died prematurely. The only real connection that the Kyokotsu has to Japanese folklore is the bottom of wells are actually connected directly to the land of the dead. Next, we have to talk about the Kitsune. So in Wayward, the Kitsune are these foxes that can shapeshift into warriors, and they despise change. They see it as the enemy. In reality, the Kitsune are not Japanese. The Kitsune that people associate with Japan are actually based off a Chinese folktale creature called the Hulijing. The Hulijing were a fox spirit that could have up to 9 tails and could create fire. It is worth saying that in Japan that there were Kitsune before the Chinese influence came over, but they were not that well developed at all, and people really didn't worship them like they did when the Chinese influence came over. So the Kitsune have the ability to shapeshift, primarily the ability to take human form, but only when they reach 100 years old. The more old a fox is as well, the more tails it has, and when it eventually reaches 9 tails, its fur turns white and it becomes omnipotent. They had a tendency to turn into attractive women, go and marry farmers, and then run away before the farmer could find out their true nature. The Kitsune had a whole range of abilities, from creating fire, to illusionism, to shapeshifting into other creatures, to bending space and time. I would give you a Celtic mythology equivalent of them, but they filled every single role from succubi to fairies. Now, from the years 794 till 1185, the yokai marched together on certain nights of the years. These nights became known as the Yukata Yakko. The only way to protect yourself on these nights were to stay in your house, otherwise you would be spirited away. All in all, Wayward is absolutely fantastic, and it borrows so much from Japanese folktales, and I absolutely love that because I think Japanese folktales are so interesting. I would recommend Wayward for everyone, especially if you like anime and manga and want to start reading comics, because it would appeal a lot to you. I do have a giveaway going on at the moment, but only one person is going to win that. So if you really want to read Wayward, go out and buy it. Don't rely on the giveaway. It's super effective! Okay guys, that is it for today. So what do you think of Japanese folktales found in comics? Please let me know in the comments down below. And also don't forget to thumbs up and subscribe if you want to see more history videos. And also don't forget to like me on Facebook, follow me on Twitter, support the show by checking out my Patreon so I can make bigger and better and more history videos. And also don't forget to subscribe to my gaming channel. My name is Faust, this has been Exploring Comics, and it is super effective.